said I'm going to record it since this never happened before.
In 26, it did take a couple of hours, but you can see the result there. That pace
Look at that, both lanes are moving so well.
And still, it is. You can see there in the right-hand lanes there, but cars are moving in one direction, and eastbound and westbound I-26.
A team effort, law enforcement agencies from every municipality participating in this process, thousands of law enforcement officers and state troopers all guiding drivers, motorists through this process. And along I-26 westbound, comfort stations set up at various rest areas, giving people an opportunity to stretch their legs, use restrooms to regroup and to rest as they make this trek across South Carolina as Hurricane Matthew makes its trek a little bit closer to our coastline. So let's find out more about Matthew's path right now. Let's get the very latest on the forecasts from
I can't either.
Chief Meteorologist Rob Fowler. Rob, give us an idea of what you are seeing. You were telling us and explaining the European model and what it means for us about the storm's impact.
All right,
Yeah, the European model has that certainly could impact us even more. But again, that's one model. We have several we look at. It's kind of a compilation. But typically we do put a lot of stock in the European as well as the American model, which has really been upgraded quite a bit since Hurricane Sandy back in 2012. But first, a note to all the folks who put that plan together. Can you imagine everything that went into reversing lanes in a city like Charleston with the growth?
Yeah, I give them that. They did a good job.
Who put that together? Because I remember Floyd, and it was not fun at all. But now, hopefully, the commute out of town will encourage more folks to evacuate, because I know a lot of my friends say, I'm not going anymore because of what happened in Floyd. This is a whole different situation, folks. As we look at what's going on with the Hurricane Matthew moving through the Bahamas now, and you can see there's Andros, the bigger island here, New Providence. That's where Nassau is, and I think just about everybody, or at least a lot of us, have been to Nassau, so you kind of know what we're talking about. And unfortunately, the storm looks like it's
Not
heading
everybody,
right
Rob.
over all of the Bahamas. The Bahamas is a chain of islands, I think about 700 miles. So it's a large group of islands extending quite a distance down into the Caribbean. So it looks like just about all the islands will be impacted in some form or fashion by Hurricane Matthew. The question is, will we be impacted? I think we will. In fact, I know we will. The question is, how much impact will we see? Category 3 hurricane, wind to 120 miles an hour. It's moving to the northwest at 12. These are the models that we hang our hats on, the spaghetti models, and it gets its name because it looks like noodles of spaghetti, if you will. But when you cluster them all together, when they're in some kind of an agreement like this, you've got to really put a lot of stock in this. Even though I have to say, the forecast is fairly low confidence just because the way this is going to hug the coast of Florida, which basically means that any deviation east, west, north, or south by just a few miles can drastically change the impacts that we might see. But I'm always of the belief that you err on the side of caution. So we certainly hope this bend takes place sooner, where a lot of us would be out of harm's way, including Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina, even North Carolina. But the bottom line is, based on the current information we have, it looks like the bend is going to take place, but maybe not soon enough to keep a lot of folks out of harm's way in terms of tropical storm force winds, lots of rain, hurricane force winds. This is an important note for us. This is a Category 2 hurricane forecast, Saturday 8 a.m. Roughly on the same longitude as Charleston, 80 degrees. And it's roughly, this point would be about 100 miles to our south at that time. Now, this is the European model that we were talking about. We showed you just a little while ago. As we take you through time, this is Friday, and you can see really near the Space Coast, there could be close to a landfall according to this model. Now we're going to move it up through time, and as we do, you can kind of see that by the time we get to Saturday, it's going to hug the coast right by South Carolina and end up maybe off the Grand Strand. And then later on Monday, it moves out to sea. So this may hug the coast all the way from Florida through Georgia and even into South Carolina. That concerns us. Now, this is another model that we look at, the GFS. This is the American model, and you will see a little different solution. Yes, taking it through the Bahamas, then we move it on, actually a landfall potential right over Florida. But watch what happens for us. It actually keeps it off the coast a little farther than what the European model does. So these are two things that we're looking to track. Even the GFS takes it offshore. Particles on the future radar. And we're going to put this in motion so you'll see what impacts we might see sooner than later. We think the rain will start maybe as early as Friday evening and then continue tonight into most of the day on Saturday. We're going to stop at Thursday at 3 o'clock, roughly 24 hours from now. But again, Friday, so 48 hours from now, and at that time, the center of the storm could be just to the east of. Then by 11 o'clock on Friday night, look at this, already starting to see those outer rain bands. We're getting a good onshore wind flow that could enhance some of the tidal flooding issues, and the center of the storm south of West Bend, then by 8 o'clock in the morning, may make its closest approach to Charleston based on this model. This is our in-house model called the RPM. So it's a different model. So we've already shown you 3 different models with kind of 3 different solutions, even though fairly similar. Then we show you what happens after that. It kind of moves back out to sea. So this is a graphic that will detail the percentage chance, the probability. 34 knot winds, 34 knots is 39 miles an hour roughly, and that's what a tropical storm, when it gets a name, it has to have winds at least 39. So if you look at the scale, and I'll kind of zero in for you, 70 to 80% right now, 80 to 90% not that far offshore, and then it tapers back. A lot of you asking, what kind of impact might I see as we head out towards Colleton County, or Upper Dorchester, or Upper Berkeley, Williamsburg, into Georgetown? Well, you can see that you also could see some tropical storm force winds. Based on the current track, I can't emphasize that enough, any deviation in that track is going to adjust the probability that you will see some tropical storm force winds. Hurricane force winds, this graphic is interesting to note because here we are a couple of days and some change away from maybe the main event, and you're looking at a 10, 20, 30% probability of hurricane force winds. That is fairly high for this far out. We'll keep an eye on that number. If that number does increase, obviously the confidence will be increasing that we could see some hurricane force winds. But in a nutshell, tropical storm force winds are likely. We'll just throw the possibility, be fairly generic about the hurricane force winds. Several inches of rain, maybe upwards of 5 to 10 inches with flooding possible. We'll see some tidal, some erosion certainly, rip currents, all those marine interests. Obviously, it's not the time to be out in the water. So there's a lot going on, a lot of things we continue to watch. I wish we could pin it down right now, but we know the atmosphere is always moving, very fluid, and hurricanes are very hard to predict just because of that reason.
Yeah, Rob, you've done a great job, and I appreciate how you've been able to show us some of this stuff
Right.
and these latest models and really fine-tuning. What I'm concerned about are the force of the winds and telling us, you said 70
Stop.
to 80% tropical storm force. How far in? So people who live, let's say, in North Charleston,
Right.
West Ashley, would they feel it? Because sometimes they get a little confused about coast means I can see water outside my window. But
Right.
that doesn't necessarily mean that, right?
All right, let's say it gets within, the center gets within 100 miles of Charleston. So the hurricane force winds right now, if you look inside the storm and cut inside the storm, dissect the storm, roughly 30, 40 miles away from the center. So you have to be with that, in that distance to get hurricane force winds. We're talking, in this case, you're going to be 100 miles an hour. But the tropical storm force winds extend well out farther than that, maybe 100, 120 miles. So if it's 100 miles from the coast, 20 miles inland, you would feel those tropical storm force winds. And again, track dependent. If it gets a little closer, that's going to extend even farther inland. If it goes a little farther out to sea, then more of those winds are going to be pulled offshore and not as many onshore.
Great visual. Thank you, Rob.
Exactly. I hate it for Florida, but if it goes right up that coast, it will chew up that storm a little bit.
We hope Florida, especially South Florida, you've got the Everglades down there, so it's not a mountainous area that's going to tear it apart, but it is a circulation, and when you can disrupt that just a little bit, you have every opportunity to weaken it a little bit, but we think it's going to actually strengthen in the Bahamas back to a Category 4, it's a Category 3 now, so even though it would weaken, it would just weaken down to a Category 3 or Category 2 off of our coast.
All right. Well, Rob, of course, this is all the result of Hurricane Matthew. What we are